months I would need help filling out my physical information on the questionnaire. It was impossible to take the requested measurements without someone's aid, and it would be difficult to convince anyone that I wasn't filling out the application for an insane asylum. For example, I had to provide the measurements of my biceps when they were hanging by my side, as well as completely flexed. When we were younger, I had struck the same pose in front of my cousin Lisandro to prove that I was stronger than him. Therefore, it was Lisandro himself to whom I turned for help. The measurements were so detailed and varied that someone could have easily reproduced my body down to the millimeter. The form was 7 pages long, each one brimming with check boxes. The photographs, the cost of which was covered by the university, demanded a greater exercise of patience and will. Believe me when I say that the sacrifice they entailed nearly dissuaded me from the trip. They required such an exhaustive survey, so to speak, of my poor body that by the end I was stripping off more than decorum permits. It was my sense of humor and Lisandro that got me through it. My cousin photographed me partially and totally, and from every angle imaginable. The delivery of these materials to Europe was handled by the 4th or 5th attaché at the embassy, who had also provided us with cameras, film, lenses, lights, and many other gadgets. A few days after I finished the mountain of paperwork, I received another letter, this one markedly unpleasant. It seemed I was Lerna's ideal candidate. The rector, deans, department heads, and a whole string of authorities affirmed and signed and stamped a declaration that congratulated themselves and me for a happy end to the negotiations. In the same envelope was a check that somewhat alleviated the stupidity of the letter. My flight was scheduled for the first Monday of December. Lisandro, kind-hearted as ever, strove to dissipate my growing concerns. How could I pass up this opportunity? My abnegation had to do with the humiliating nature of their requests. But to Lisandro they were just examples of the watchmaker's spirit so typical of the Swiss. Watchmakers or not, they had managed, with their gloved and affected means, to which I am so hostile, to put me between a rock and a hard place. The end of October came, and I had to resign my position at the court, or ask for a leave of absence, if I wanted to travel on the date set by Lerna. Resigning was out of the question. I knew my leave would be granted automatically for a fellowship like this, but I asked with the secret hope that it would be denied. Judge Riera, who has known me since I was a child, was so moved when he read my request that he almost cried. I felt like I was being ambushed. As a rule, a porteño is reluctant to abandon his neck of the woods. I spoke with Lisandro about Lerna until he was bored out of his mind. I went over the facts. The Swiss are Swiss, and there was no reason to be surprised by their strangeness. Accepting the invitation would bring me the following benefits: a guaranteed promotion when I got back, the chance to disentangle myself from a few women who were beginning to complicate my life, an economic solution for the next few years, if I reconciled myself to saving a little bit of the large quantity of money provided by the fellowship, a visit to Europe, and, as Judge Riera put it, the incredible opportunity to move away from one's country and see it with the double perspective of time and distance. Personally, I couldn't care less about the latter, but considering the scarcity of favorable elements to tip the scales toward accepting, I opted to consider it. The prospect of being promoted didn't move me either. I know full well that it's best to limit oneself to a tiny position in order to live in peace. To become the registrar, the manager, the chief, is to make the same deal as the toad who traded his eyes for a tail. Goodbye to drinking 2 glasses too many. Goodbye to staying up late reading. Goodbye to friends. Goodbye to women. The part about the women had its advantages, but I couldn't help being upset by this imposed separation, and, perhaps most importantly, having to abandon the conflicts that dating more than one woman simultaneously implied. Visiting Europe is something that every Argentine keeps in